Title: Ancient Giants Once Roamed Earth. Part 1: Whispers in the Earth. They call it folklore. We call it buried truth. Beneath the soil, in forgotten caves, and in suppressed museum vaults, whispers of a lost race grow louder. Introduction: A giant question. What if everything we've been taught about human history, our origins, evolution, and civilizations, is only part of the story? What if the earth beneath our feet holds secrets so powerful, so unsettling, that mainstream science chooses to ignore them? This isn't about fairy tales. This is about hard evidence that points to a deeply buried truth. Giants once walked the earth. We're not talking about metaphorical giants of history. We're talking 9, 12, even 20-foot tall humanoids whose bones have been found, photographed, and then quietly erased from the scientific record. If that sounds impossible, buckle in. The journey begins now. 1. Unusual skeletal finds across the globe. Let's start with the ground beneath us. Literally. Throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries, newspaper reports in the US, Europe, and South America frequently mentioned giant skeletons unearthed by farmers, miners, and archaeologists. These weren't one-off stories. We're talking about dozens of documented cases, published in respected local newspapers like the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the St. Paul Globe. A few examples. Moundsville, West Virginia, 1876. Skeletons over 9 feet tall were discovered in burial mounds with double rows of teeth and massive skulls. San Diego, California, 1895. A skeleton nearly 8 feet long was found by prospectors. The femur alone measured almost twice that of a modern man. Lovelock Cave, Nevada, 1911. Miners uncovered giant red-haired skeletons, allegedly 8 to 10 feet tall, in what was later deemed a sacred Paiute cave. But where are these bones today? 2. Legends from every corner of the earth. It's not just archaeology whispering this tale. Ancient cultures around the world seem to have been shouting it. The Bible speaks of the Nephilim, the children of angels and women, described as mighty men of old, men of renown, Genesis 6, verse 4. After the flood, the giant Anakim and Rephaim are mentioned again and again. The Norse sagas tell of the Jotnar, giants who lived in Jotunheim and constantly battled the gods. In Greek mythology, the Titans were immense beings who ruled before the Olympians. One of them, Atlas, was so large he could hold up the heavens. Native American tribes like the Paiute, Choctaw, and Ojibwe have passed down stories of cannibalistic red-haired giants who waged war against their ancestors. The Mahabharata, an ancient Indian text, refers to enormous warriors, some said to be hundreds of feet tall, battling across the skies. The amazing part? These stories come from vastly different places and periods, yet they all describe the same kind of beings. 3. Why mainstream science rejects the idea. You may be wondering, if so many legends and supposed bones exist, why hasn't the scientific world confirmed it? The answer is uncomfortable. Mainstream archaeology operates within a narrow framework of accepted history. That framework depends on evolutionary timelines, gradual development of civilization, and linear progress. Giants don't fit, period. Worse, funding, academic tenure, and professional reputation all depend on conformity. If a researcher publishes a paper about 12-foot humanoids with double rows of teeth, it's academic suicide. And then there's the gatekeepers, 4, the Smithsonian and the vanishing giants. One institution comes up again and again when you look into missing giant bones, the Smithsonian Institution. Numerous reports from the 1800s describe giant skeletons being shipped to the Smithsonian after discovery, never to be seen again. Take the case of Beloit, Wisconsin, 1912. A mound excavation revealed 18 skeletons, all between 7 and 9 feet tall, with elongated skulls. A professor from Beloit College reportedly contacted the Smithsonian. Within weeks, the bones vanished. In 2014, a whistleblower from the American Institute of Alternative Archaeology, AIAA, claimed that the Smithsonian destroyed thousands of giant skeletons in the early 1900s to protect the mainstream narrative. While the Smithsonian strongly denied this, they've never allowed independent investigation into their bone archives. 5. A pattern in the dirt. Now look at where these skeletons are found. A pattern begins to emerge. They're often uncovered in or near ancient mounds. Many are found in secluded caves near rivers or energy centers. They frequently appear during mining, construction, or erosion events, meaning they're not intentionally sought, but revealed by chance. Almost every time, the remains disappear quickly, often claimed by unnamed government agencies, university labs, or private researchers. Coincidence or a consistent effort to suppress? 6. So what were they? The biggest question of all, what were these beings? Let's entertain some possibilities. Lost human subspecies, perhaps a now extinct race of large humans like Homo gigantus, once walked the Earth. Their DNA never made it into modern humans. Alien hybrids. If you believe in extraterrestrial involvement, the Nephilim and similar beings could have been genetic experiments. Interdimensional entities. Some theorists suggest that giants phase in and out of our dimension, possibly tied to ancient magnetic or energetic anomalies on Earth. Whatever the case, their existence challenges everything we think we know about biology, history, and even theology. Number 7. A threat to the narrative. You may wonder, why hide it? Because admitting giants existed would throw Darwinian evolution, biblical literalism, and our understanding of civilization into chaos. The Bible would be partially validated, which could upset secular academia. Evolution would have to account for massive humanoids, perhaps even coexisting with modern humans. Ancient structures like the pyramids might suddenly be explainable without aliens, but rather by gigantic builders we forgot. It's easier to bury the bones and the truth. Conclusion: the whispers grow louder. In dusty museum basements, in locked archives, and in mounds too dangerous to excavate, the whispers of the giants grow louder. The soil remembers. Are we standing on the graves of a forgotten race? In the next chapter, we'll dig deeper, literally. We'll go to the source of the controversy, the bones themselves. We'll examine the archaeological sites, the missing evidence, and the people who tried to speak out and were silenced. Part 2, the bones they buried. We've seen the photos. We've read the headlines, skeletons up to 12 feet long with skulls that don't match anything in our textbooks. But where are they now? Introduction. Missing bones, missing truth. In part 1, we followed the ancient whispers beneath our feet, legends, mythologies, and leaked discoveries that hinted giants once walked the earth. Now we follow the bones, actual bones, because as unbelievable as it sounds, hundreds of giant skeletons have been discovered, photographed, and documented throughout history. Not just one or two, hundreds. And yet, almost none of them exist in museums, laboratories, or academic archives today. So what happened? Let's dig deep into dusty archives, old newspapers, eyewitness testimonies, and government records to uncover the bones they buried, both literally and metaphorically. 1. Documented discoveries from the 1800s and 1900s. Let's begin with verifiable newspaper reports. Publications like the New York Times, the Evening News, and Scientific American, long before the term fake news existed. New York Times, May 4, 1908, a skeleton measuring over 9 feet tall was discovered in a coal mine near Mount Carbon, Pennsylvania. The workers originally thought they'd found a bear until they saw the skull. The St. Paul Globe, January 24, 1897. Giant human bones unearthed in Lake Delavan, Wisconsin. At least 18 skeletons, some over 8 feet tall, with double rows of teeth, 6 fingers, and oddly shaped skulls. Local scientists were baffled. The bones were sent to the Smithsonian, never seen again. Scientific American, August 14, 1880, reported the discovery of enormous bones in the Eureka area of Nevada. A femur bone alone measured 4.5 feet, suggesting a creature over 12 feet tall. The list goes on. And the strange thing? All these bones were routinely handed over to a single institution. 2. The Smithsonian's role, guardians of history or gatekeepers of truth. Time and again, the Smithsonian Institution appears at the center of these stories. A national museum trusted by millions, yet wrapped in decades of controversy surrounding these giant remains. Researchers like Dr. Richard J. Dewhurst, author of The Ancient Giants Who Ruled America, uncovered over 400 documented cases of giant skeletons discovered in the U.S. alone. Many reportedly shipped to Smithsonian, where they disappeared. But the most chilling revelation came in 2014 when an alleged whistleblower from inside the Smithsonian revealed that thousands of giant skeletons had been destroyed in a secret order during the early 1900s. Their reasoning? According to the claim, these skeletons contradict the narrative of evolution and human development as we teach it today. Although the Smithsonian denied this allegation, they also refused to release detailed internal records for independent review. So we ask, why is the existence of large humanoid skeletons considered so dangerous? 3. North American mound builders, another piece of the puzzle. Many of the bones weren't found randomly. They were buried in mysterious earthen mounds scattered across the United States. The so-called mound builders left behind thousands of these massive burial sites, from Ohio's Serpent Mound to the Etowah Mounds in Georgia. Archaeologists say they belong to ancient Native American cultures. But Native oral traditions often tell a different story. The Paiute, Choctaw, and Navajo tribes speak of giants with red hair, enormous strength, and strange weapons. Some legends even describe wars between human tribes and these giants. When excavations began in the 1800s, many of these mounds contained oversized skeletons, some with unusual features. Skulls with cranial ridges or extended occipital bones, jawbones large enough to fit over a modern human's face, double rows of teeth, 6 fingers or toes. Archaeologist Dr. Alice Hrdlicka, who worked with the Smithsonian, documented many such finds but classified them as abnormal deformities or misidentified animal bones. In most cases, the remains were quietly taken away, out of sight, out of history. 4. Photographic evidence. Are the images fake? Skeptics will say, show me the bones. But what about the photographs? There are dozens of vintage photographs showing enormous skeletons being unearthed, surrounded by groups of people for scale. Some are clearly authentic, others may be hoaxes or photo manipulations. But the point is this, not all of them can be fake. Take the 1895 image from San Diego, where a skeleton nearly 9 feet long was exhumed from a dry lake bed. The image circulated in scientific journals, then nothing. Or the Lovelock Cave photos, originally part of a local museum archive in Nevada. Several photos show skulls much larger than normal human anatomy, some with red hair still attached. When interest in giants peaked, those photos were mysteriously removed. Why are so many images destroyed, hidden, or debunked by organizations with vested interests? Number 5. Physical anomalies in ancient skeletons. Let's talk anatomy. Some giant skeletons reportedly had features that don't match modern humans. Double rows of teeth, reported in multiple cases from the mounds of West Virginia to burial sites in Tennessee. 6 fingers or toes, a consistent feature in Native American legends and some physical finds. Massive jawbones, so large they could encase a modern human's lower face. Skull elongation, found in Peru, Egypt, and parts of Eastern Europe. Some of these skulls had a cranial volume significantly larger than modern humans, not the result of head binding, according to some researchers. Genetic testing on some elongated skulls from Paracas, Peru, 2014, revealed mtDNA mutations not found in any known human group, suggesting a possibly unknown lineage or even species. That data has since been discredited by mainstream labs, but the original results remain online. Why shut down the research so quickly? 6. Scientists who got too close. There's a pattern here, not just with the bones, but with the people trying to expose the truth. Dr. Vine Deloria Jr., a Native American scholar, was outspoken about the suppression of Native legends involving giants. He said archaeologists routinely ignore or reinterpret stories to fit their narrative. Dr. Klaus Dohna, an Austrian researcher, publicly displayed giant bones and artifacts in his exhibitions. Some of his most controversial items were confiscated during transit between countries. Michael Tellinger, a South African researcher, claims to have discovered giant footprints fossilized in rock. His finds were ignored or mocked by academic circles, despite geological evidence supporting their authenticity. Are these just fringe theorists or whistleblowers? 7. Where are the bones now? If hundreds of giant skeletons were discovered, where are they today? Some say, private vaults owned by elite collectors, sealed crates in federal archives, mislabeled or classified, buried again by those who feared their implications, or worse, destroyed intentionally. In rare cases, some bones have resurfaced, like the Cap d'Oie skeleton, an 11-foot-tall mummified giant allegedly found in Patagonia in the 1600s. It passed through multiple museums before ending up in a curiosity shop in Baltimore. While its authenticity is debated, it represents a lingering question. If it's fake, why can't we test it openly? Conclusion. The silence screams. You don't erase something that never existed. You don't destroy bones unless those bones threaten the story you've built. We're left with a haunting silence, filled with too many coincidences, too many cover-ups, and too many suppressed voices. The bones are out there, maybe beneath a mound in rural Ohio, or locked in a steel case in a government basement. But make no mistake, they buried more than just bones. They buried the truth. Part 3, Giants in the Scriptures and Myths. When every ancient culture tells the same story in different tongues and across different continents, is it still just myth, or is it memory? Introduction: Myths woven from truth. Since the dawn of civilization, humanity has told stories of gods, monsters, and legendary beings. Among them, one recurring figure towers above the rest: the giant. These aren't isolated folk tales. They appear everywhere in sacred scriptures, oral traditions, epic poems, and stone carvings. Some say they're allegorical, representing power, danger, or chaos. But what if that's not the whole picture? What if these tales weren't mere metaphors, but cultural memories, distorted over millennia, of a race of enormous beings that once walked among us? Today, we peel back the layers of myth and scripture and ask, why does every corner of the earth remember giants? 1. The Bible and the Nephilim. The fallen ones. Let's begin with perhaps the most controversial and most widely cited source, the Holy Bible. In Genesis 6:4, we read, "There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. The same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown." These beings are known as the Nephilim. According to the Book of Enoch, a text removed from most modern Bibles but revered in ancient Hebrew tradition, the Nephilim were the offspring of fallen angels, known as the Watchers, and human women. These hybrids were massive in size and corrupted the earth, leading directly to God's decision to cause the Great Flood. Key details: the Nephilim were said to be 3,000 ells tall, estimated between 450 to 500 feet, though likely symbolic. They devoured mankind, according to the Book of Enoch. Their spirits became the evil spirits or demons that plague mankind post-flood. After the flood, remnants remained. Numbers 13, verse 33, describes the Anakim, descendants of the Nephilim, whom the Israelite spies encountered in Canaan. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. Why would a sacred text, read by billions, insist giants were real unless there was collective memory behind it? 2. Greek mythology, Titans and Olympian revolt. Across the Mediterranean, Greek mythology echoes similar themes. A race of enormous beings preceded mankind and were later overthrown by more modern gods. The Titans, massive primordial beings, children of Gaia, Earth, and Uranus, Sky, who ruled the Earth before the Olympians. The Gigantomachy, the legendary war between the Olympian gods and the giants. A cosmic battle involving thunderbolts, spears, and even Mount Olympus being used as a weapon. Giants like Atlas, who held up the heavens, or Typhon, described as taller than mountains, weren't just metaphors. Ancient Greek artists sculpted and painted them in detailed battle scenes, often side by side with humans, emphasizing their immense scale. The Greeks weren't alone. 3. Norse mythology, Jotnar and the End of Days. In the cold sagas of the North, the Jotnar, often translated as giants, are primal forces, enemies of the gods and sometimes their ancestors. Ymir, the first being, was a frost giant whose body was used to create the world. His flesh became the earth, his blood the oceans, and his bones the mountains. Thor, the god of thunder, routinely battles giants. The Ragnarok prophecy, the end of days, is a final battle between gods and giants. Jotnar were not mindless brutes. Some were wise, some were monstrous. Many intermarried with the gods. Again, we see the same pattern, an older, larger race, deeply entangled with the divine and the human. 4. Hindu texts, Rakshasas, Daityas, and the giant kings. In the rich spiritual traditions of India, giants are known as Rakshasas, Daityas, and Danavas. In the Mahabharata and Ramayana, these beings are described as towering warriors with superhuman abilities, often possessing multiple heads or arms and commanding armies. One example is Ravana, the demon king of Lanka, who is said to be 10-headed, immensely powerful, and capable of lifting mountains. In the Bhagavata Purana, gods and demons fight over cosmic control, with giants regularly appearing in both roles. The texts even reference giant bones buried in the Himalayas and ancient cities destroyed by skyfire, which modern theorists interpret as advanced weaponry. Could these be memories of a prehistoric war involving beings much larger than us? 5. Native American legends. The red-haired cannibal giants. Perhaps the most striking stories come from North America, where tribal legends describe actual warfare with giants. The Paiute people of Nevada speak of the Siste-Ka, red-haired, pale-skinned giants who lived in caves and ate human flesh. According to the legend, the Paiutes eventually trapped them in Lovelock Cave and burned them alive. In 1911, miners excavating Lovelock Cave unearthed giant skeletons, some measuring 8 to 10 feet tall. They also found red hair, enormous sandals, and oversized tools. Coincidence? The Choctaw, Comanche, and Navajo all have similar stories of giant races they fought and feared. Number 6, Africa, South America, and Oceania. Global memories. Africa. In Mali and Ghana, oral traditions speak of sky people and giants who fell from the stars. The Dogon tribe, known for their advanced astronomical knowledge, say these beings were part human, part divine, and towered over men. South America. In Ecuador and Peru, pre-Inca legends refer to giants who came from the sea and built massive structures before being destroyed by a great flood. The Chilote mythology of Chile speaks of cursed giants who tried to conquer the world. Polynesia. In Hawaiian and Maori myths, there are stories of tall builders and giants with great strength who built roads, temples, and moved stones too massive for modern cranes. Why does this theme appear everywhere? 7. Common traits and themes across cultures. Across thousands of years and languages, these giant legends share common threads: pre-human or early human origin, incredible size and strength, advanced knowledge or power, moral corruption or rebellion against the gods, a great war or flood to wipe them out, remnants hidden in mountains, caves, or underground realms. Are these just universal storytelling devices, or do they reflect a shared ancestral memory passed down generation after generation? Even Carl Jung believed myths were more than fiction. He called them archetypes of the collective unconscious. But perhaps they're not unconscious at all. Perhaps they're forgotten truths recorded by early humans who actually witnessed giants or survived them. 8. Are myths just metaphors or eyewitness accounts? Academia teaches us to treat myths as symbolic. But what if ancient people weren't primitive? What if they recorded what they actually saw: giant beings, enormous tools, impossible architecture? Look at megalithic sites worldwide. The stones are so massive, many archaeologists still can't explain how they were moved. Were they built for giants or by them? And if these stories are mere allegory, why do they align so perfectly with archaeological finds we've already discussed? Bones, tools, footprints. Could it be that mythology is misunderstood history? Conclusion. Truth, hiding in plain sight. Giants have been with us since the beginning, etched into stone, carved into temples, written in sacred books. We laugh at the tales now, call them fantasy, and tell our children their bedtime stories. But they're not going away. In fact, the deeper we dig, the louder they become. Because myths don't emerge from nothing. They come from trauma, from memory, from events so powerful they get passed down in whispers across generations. And those whispers, they all say the same thing. Giants were real. Part 4. Mysterious megaliths and the giant builders. When we stare up at towering ancient stones weighing hundreds of tons, moved, carved, and placed with impossible precision, we must ask, who or what built them? And why does no one talk about the builders being giants? Introduction. More than just big rocks, around the world, ancient megalithic structures stand in silence, challenging our modern understanding of history, physics, and human capability. From the cyclopean walls of Sacsayhuaman in Peru, to the stone of the pregnant woman in Baalbek, Lebanon, to the massive monoliths of Göbekli Tepe, these structures defy conventional explanations. Some stones weigh over 1,000 tons. Others are placed with such precision that not even a razor blade can fit between them. And some of these stones were moved miles without the wheel. Modern engineers admit we couldn't replicate many of these today, even with cranes and computers. So, how did ancient civilizations, supposedly without advanced tools, perform these superhuman feats? One answer lingers just out of reach. They didn't. Giants did. 1. Sacsayhuaman, the impossible fortress. High in the Peruvian Andes sits a massive stone fortress known as Sacsayhuaman. Its interlocking stone walls are composed of blocks weighing up to 200 tons. The stones fit together perfectly without mortar, and many are shaped with irregular angles, fitting like 3D puzzle pieces. Local legend says the walls were built by a race of gigantic, powerful beings long before the Inca inherited the site. And here's the twist: no tools, blueprints, or written plans have ever been found. Some stones were transported over 20 miles from a quarry across valleys and hills. How? Modern engineers struggle to even theorize. There is no consensus explanation, unless the builders had inhuman strength. 2. Baalbek. Stones too big to move. In Lebanon is the ancient city of Baalbek, home to the Roman temple of Jupiter. But the Roman structure sits atop a far older foundation, made of some of the largest stones ever carved by man. The trilithon, 3 limestone blocks, each weighing approximately 800 tons, are stacked perfectly side by side. The stone of the pregnant woman weighs over 1,000 tons, and it wasn't even finished being moved. Mainstream archaeologists claim ancient people used ropes, levers, and ramps to move them. But there's zero physical evidence of such infrastructure. No ramps, no drag marks, no massive labor camps nearby. Some believe these were pre-flood constructions by a now-lost civilization of giants with superhuman abilities, or perhaps advanced tools hidden from us. Why does Baalbek share legends of watchers or titans building the site? Who are they watching? 3. Giants in the Bible and stone effect. It's not a coincidence that the megalithic structures often appear in regions tied to biblical accounts of giants. Mount Hermon near Baalbek is where the Book of Enoch says the fallen angels, watchers, descended and taught forbidden knowledge, including metallurgy, architecture, and warfare. These watchers supposedly mated with human women, producing the Nephilim, a race of giants who corrupted the world before the flood. Baalbek and other megalithic sites may be remnants of the pre-flood world wiped out because of these hybrid beings. In other words, the builders of the megaliths may have been the Nephilim themselves, or were built to honor them. Why else do these stones appear so deliberately massive, as if made for beings twice or 3 times human size? 4. Göbekli Tepe, the first temple, built by giants? Discovered in 1994 in modern-day Turkey, Göbekli Tepe is over 12,000 years old, far older than the pyramids. Its massive T-shaped pillars, some weighing 20-plus tons, were arranged in astronomical alignments with carved reliefs of animals and cosmic symbols. Here's the mystery. The site predates agriculture, metal tools, and written language. There's no evidence of a local village or settlement, meaning people supposedly built this complex without even having permanent homes. And then it was deliberately buried, as if to protect it. Traditional history can't explain it. But local Kurdish legends speak of the Watchers, giant beings who came from the heavens, taught the people, and built great temples in the time before time. Is Göbekli Tepe one of their monuments? 5. The Polynesian giants of Easter Island. Easter Island is famous for its moai, massive stone heads that actually have full torsos buried beneath the earth. Some stand over 30 feet tall and weigh up to 80 tons. How did the ancient Rapa Nui people move and erect these statues? One theory says they walked the statues using ropes. Another claims they used wooden sleds, but there's no direct evidence of either. Island oral tradition speaks of a race of long-eared giants, known as the Hanau Ipe, who originally carved and erected the statues until they were overthrown by the short-eared people. Were the Hanau Ipe literal giants? And if not, why the physical descriptions, the strength, and the near-impossible tasks? Once again, the legend supports the theory. Giants built what modern humans cannot explain. 6. The builders left clues. Hidden across these sites are symbols and patterns we've barely begun to decode. The spiral patterns at Newgrange in Ireland and Nazca in Peru, repeating serpent motifs from Mesopotamia to Mesoamerica. The handprint symbols, often too large for normal human hands, etched in caves and temples. Some researchers believe these are not just art, but messages left by ancient builders, warnings, guides, or signatures. And if the builders were giants, it means we've been misinterpreting their clues for millennia. We've been reading a giant's language with human eyes. 7. Modern silence, ancient power. Why don't we talk about these things? Because they rewrite everything. If ancient humans didn't build these sites, then who did? If tools didn't exist, then how were 1,000-ton stones moved? If legends of giants align with physical structures, are they just legends? We've been trained to believe humans have always been the smartest species on Earth. But what if we're not the first? What if a race of giants, pre-human or post-human, godlike or alien, once ruled the earth and left behind monuments too large to ignore. Conclusion: stones don't lie. You can fake a story, you can hide bones, but you can't fake a 1,000-ton stone perfectly placed thousands of years ago. The monuments speak, and what they say is chilling. There was a time before time, a time when giants ruled the earth, carved mountains, raised temples, and then vanished, leaving behind only massive whispers in stone. In the next part, we'll go underground, literally. We'll explore ancient tunnels and vast subterranean networks that may have been built by or for giants, and the startling evidence that many of them still exist, hidden beneath modern cities and closed-off military zones. Part 5, Underground Kingdoms of the Giants. What if the Earth is hollow, not just in theory, but in structure, laced with tunnels, caverns, and ancient cities built by a race we no longer acknowledge? What if the giants never left, they just went underground? Introduction. Beneath our feet lies the forgotten. All across the world, from Turkey to Ecuador, legends tell of vast underground networks, cities, and chambers, some stretching for hundreds of miles. Mainstream archaeology chalks many of these up to local folklore or exaggeration. But what if they're more than stories? What if these underground realms were once the homes of the ancient giants? In this chapter, we journey into the earth itself, exploring mysterious tunnel systems too vast for ancient tools, legends of subterranean cities ruled by giants or gods, the strange fact that many of these entrances are now guarded, closed, or sealed by modern governments. Are we being kept from something? Are these underground kingdoms the missing link in the giant puzzle? Let's descend. 1. Derinkuyu, a city buried deep in time. In 1963, a Turkish man knocked down a wall in his basement and accidentally discovered an entrance to Derinkuyu, an underground city extending over 200 feet below the surface, with 18 levels, ventilation shafts, and space for over 20,000 people. But here's what archaeologists don't say. Many of the tunnels are huge, taller than necessary for normal humans. Stone doors weighing up to 1,000 pounds were used to seal passages. No soot or smoke stains, suggesting some other lighting technology. And Derinkuyu is connected to dozens of other underground cities via long, carved tunnels. Who carved this massive network? Some Turkish legends speak of ancient blue-eyed giants who fled underground during the time of skyfire, a possible reference to cataclysm or flood. The giants built these places as refuges or possibly prisons. Could Derinkuyu have been a giant's bunker? 2. The Taos Caves of Ecuador, Forbidden Depths. In the dense jungles of Ecuador lies the Taos Cave System, one of the most controversial and secretive sites in South America. Why? Because of one name, Eric von Däniken, author of Chariots of the Gods. In 1976, a joint British-Ecuadorian military expedition, led by astronaut Neil Armstrong, entered the caves to explore claims made by explorer Juan Moritz, who said he found perfectly cut stone passageways, not natural formations, polished metal plates containing unknown symbols, statues resembling giant humanoid figures, and signs of an ancient advanced civilization that predated the Incas. Many locals still believe the Taos Caves were once part of a giant subterranean empire, a domain that connected South America to other continents underground. But after Armstrong's visit, the caves were sealed, access restricted, and the findings never fully published. Why would the US send an astronaut to a jungle cave? And why cover it up? 3. The Mammoth Cave System, America's giant connection. Spanning over 400 miles, the Mammoth Cave System in Kentucky is the largest known cave system on Earth. It remains only partially explored. Native American legends refer to it as the spirit world, where ancient beings lived. But here's what gets weird. In the 1800s, early cave explorers reported massive humanoid skeletons found in the caverns, many 7 to 10 feet tall. These discoveries were quickly dismissed, and most remains were never preserved. Locals speak of strange disappearances, unexplained lights, and unnatural sounds deep in the cave. Some believe the Mammoth Cave System is part of a global network, a remnant of when giants ruled and traveled underground, unseen by surface dwellers. And interestingly, many of the alleged entrances to the Hollow Earth theory align with major cave systems, including Mammoth Cave. 4. Native American lore. Giants below the surface, from the Hopi in Arizona to the Shawnee in Appalachia, many tribes tell eerily similar tales. Our ancestors lived underground with the ant people. giant beings who protected us during the time of fire and flood. These stories tell of a great catastrophe on the surface, giants, sometimes insect-like, sometimes human-like, who took survivors below, massive chambers illuminated by glowing stones, a return to the surface once the world was safe again. Mainstream historians consider these myths. But what if they're memories? If floods, asteroid impacts, or pole shifts once ravaged Earth, the only survivors would be those who went underground, or those with the power to build underground, like giants. 5. Government secrecy and military zones. Here's where it gets chilling. Many known cave systems with alleged connections to giant activity are now under military control, restricted by governments, or mysteriously closed. Parts of the Grand Canyon, where reports of Egyptian-style tombs and giant mummies were once made, are off-limits to the public. The Taos Caves, as noted, have restricted access. A tunnel found near Mount Shasta in California, a known hotspot for Lemurian and giant legends, was reportedly sealed by authorities. Deep underground military bases, DUMBs, are confirmed across the US, but their full maps are classified. Are these coincidences? Or has something been found and covered up? If governments found evidence of underground civilizations or ancient giants, would they tell us? Or would they hide the truth, afraid of rewriting history, religion, and power structures? 6. Subterranean cities in Asia, China, Tibet, India. It's not just the West. All over Asia, stories persist of vast underground realms. In Tibet, Buddhist monks speak of Agartha, a hidden world beneath the Himalayas ruled by ancient beings. Some say giants, others say ascended masters. China's Emperor Qin Shi Huang, the one with the terracotta army, ordered massive digs into the earth, not just to build tombs, but to find the underground immortals. In India, sacred texts like the Mahabharata and Ramayana reference vast serpent cities beneath the earth, accessible only by the gods or the giants. These civilizations had no contact with one another. Yet the same idea repeats. There's a world below, once ruled or built by powerful non-humans. How did they all know? 7. Are giants still there? If these tunnels exist, and if giants built them, where are they now? Some say they died out, wiped by cataclysm or disease. Others believe they retreated deeper, beyond where modern exploration can reach, waiting, watching. There are fringe reports, whispers, of encounters with pale-skinned, red-haired humanoids deep in cave systems. Others speak of abnormally large footprints found in remote underground chambers. Are they remnants, guardians, or prisoners of their own making? It's one thing to believe giants once lived underground. It's another to believe they still do. Conclusion: the hollow truth. We've looked at temples, bones, myths, but now we've gone below it all, underground, and we've found vast cities, unexplainable tunnels, sealed caves, ancient legends, and modern cover-ups. The further we dig, the stranger it gets. If giants once walked the earth, their last refuge may still be beneath us, hidden, protected, forgotten, or maybe not forgotten, just intentionally erased. Part 6, the giant skeleton cover-up. If so many giant skeletons were uncovered, why are there so few in museums? Why do photos disappear, records get lost, and artifacts vanish once handed to institutions like the Smithsonian? Introduction: a pattern of vanishing evidence. Imagine this. A farmer plowing his field strikes something hard. He digs it out and finds an enormous human skull. Soon, a full skeleton is uncovered. The bones are measured over 9 feet tall. The local paper covers it. Archaeologists arrive, a report is filed, and then it's gone. No follow-up, no skeleton, no museum exhibit, no official record. This didn't happen once. It happened dozens of times between the 1800s and early 1900s, mostly across North America. And in nearly every case, the bones were sent to one place, the Smithsonian Institution. And that's where the trail goes cold. In this chapter, we examine the greatest archaeological cover-up in U.S. history, the systematic disappearance of giant skeletons and the mysterious role played by the Smithsonian. The 1, newspaper records. The giants in the headlines. Let's start with facts, real historical documentation. In the 1800s and early 1900s, hundreds of articles were published in small-town newspapers across America reporting the discovery of giant human skeletons, including the New York Times, May 4, 1908, skeleton 12 feet tall unearthed in Arizona cave. The Indianapolis News, November 10, 1975, skeletons of giant race found in West Virginia cave. The St. Paul Globe, January 24th, 1904, giant skeletons unearthed in Minnesota Mound. Other locations include Pennsylvania, Ohio, Tennessee, Nevada, and Wisconsin. Many of these skeletons measured 7 to 12 feet tall and often had double rows of teeth, 6 fingers, or unusually shaped skulls. These aren't just rumors, they're archived publications. Many are still available through digitized newspaper libraries. So why aren't these discoveries part of school textbooks or museum exhibits? Because nearly all of them share a chilling footnote: skeletons sent to the Smithsonian Institution for analysis. 2. The Smithsonian Connection, a trail of silence. Founded in 1846, the Smithsonian Institution quickly became America's central authority on anthropology, archaeology, and history, which made it the go-to repository for artifacts, skeletons, and fossils discovered throughout the expanding U.S. But by the early 20th century, something strange began happening. Skeletons of giant stature sent to the Smithsonian would never be seen again. Letters inquiring about them would go unanswered. In some cases, local researchers or discoverers were discredited or labeled as hoaxers after Smithsonian involvement. One example. In 1883, in Cartersville, Georgia, a group of workers unearthed a skeleton over 10 feet tall with armor-like copper plates and metal spearheads. The bones were examined, photographed, and sent to the Smithsonian. No further information was ever released. Why? Were these findings hoaxes, misidentified animal bones, or something far more intentional? 3. Whistleblower claims. The Smithsonian destroyed evidence in 2014. A controversial article by World News Daily Report alleged that a Smithsonian insider came forward, admitting thousands of giant skeletons were destroyed in the early 1900s as part of a deliberate cover-up to protect the established historical narrative. According to this claim, the American Institute of Alternative Archaeology, AIAA, had filed a lawsuit demanding the Smithsonian reveal the fate of over 1,300 giant skeletons unearthed and handed over between 1840 and 1920. Allegedly, the whistleblower said, "There has been a major cover-up by Western archaeological institutions since the early 1900s. We destroyed thousands of giant skeletons to protect mainstream chronology." While the Smithsonian denied the report and claimed the article was fabricated, the allegations sparked widespread debate. Was it just a hoax article designed for clicks, or did it accidentally expose a truth hidden behind institutional silence? Let's weigh the facts. 4. Physical evidence that slipped through. Despite the cover-up narrative, some physical artifacts and photos have survived, either because they were never turned over to institutions or were preserved by private collectors. Examples include the Lovelock Cave Skull, Nevada. Found in the early 20th century, these enormous skulls were reportedly from red-haired giants that the local Paiute people fought in their legends. Some skulls were measured at twice the size of a normal adult human. Photos exist, but the physical skulls are no longer on public display. Giant femur in Belgium, photo circa 1890s. A photograph from a European museum showed a man standing next to a femur bone nearly as tall as his chest, believed to belong to a human-like figure over 10 feet tall. Smithsonian crates at Grand Canyon, early 1900s. During a supposed excavation of Egyptian-style caves in the Grand Canyon, several giant skeletons were reportedly discovered, and again, sent to the Smithsonian. These crates were never logged into public inventory. These pieces of evidence often vanish from archives or are dismissed as misinterpretations, but the pattern is undeniable. 5. Why the cover-up? The threat to the timeline. Now comes the million-dollar question. Why hide giants? What's so threatening about them? The answer lies in the established historical narrative. For centuries, we've been taught that humans evolved gradually over millions of years. Civilization began around 6,000 years ago in Mesopotamia. Our ancestors were small, primitive, and linear in development. But if giants existed and they were advanced, warlike, or hybrid beings, then everything changes. Religious texts like the Bible's Nephilim or Genesis 6 might be more literal than symbolic. Evolutionary timelines would be incomplete or incorrect. Ancient myths about gods and titans would sound more like distorted history than fiction. In short, giants would blow a massive hole in both scientific and religious orthodoxy. It's easier to suppress the evidence than to admit our textbooks are wrong. Number 6, alternative researchers and the fight for truth. Several modern-day researchers have dedicated their careers to uncovering this lost history. Jim Vieira, featured on History Channel's Search for the Lost Giants, compiled hundreds of newspaper clippings and burial reports involving giants. L.A. Marzulli has traced biblical and archaeological links between Nephilim giants and megalithic cultures. Brian Forster has studied elongated skulls from Peru, some of which show non-human DNA sequences and massive cranial volumes. Many of these researchers have been mocked, shadow banned, or deplatformed. But they keep pushing forward. Because one truth stands tall: you can't suppress history forever. 7. Recent sightings and the modern giants. Some fringe researchers claim that giant humans haven't disappeared completely. In 2002, U.S. military forces allegedly encountered and killed a giant humanoid in Afghanistan's Kandahar region. Known as the Giant of Kandahar, the being was said to be over 12 feet tall, red-haired, and humanoid. Extremely aggressive, killing a special ops soldier before being shot. Flown out in a massive cargo chopper, never seen again. While the story remains unverified, multiple alleged military witnesses have spoken anonymously. Some believe this modern giant was a remnant survivor of an ancient subterranean race, connected to those we've discussed. If true, this isn't just about ancient history. It's about what might still be out there. Conclusion. Where are the bones? The bones were found, the photos were taken, the articles were written, and then the silence. The pattern of discovery, documentation, disappearance is too consistent to ignore. Whether it's through intentional destruction, institutional neglect, or deliberate suppression, the story of ancient giants has been erased from public consciousness, but not from memory. Thanks to independent researchers, citizen historians, and digitized archives, the trail is being reopened. The giants once walked among us. We held their bones in our hands, and someone took them away. Part 7. Global Legends, Shared Giants. Why do tribes separated by oceans, continents, and thousands of years all tell stories about giants? Either it's the greatest coincidence in human history, or it's something much bigger. Introduction. A pattern too large to ignore. Anthropologists often dismiss myths as metaphors. Stories of fire-breathing dragons, gods in the sky, and massive giants stomping across mountains are usually explained as cultural exaggerations, allegories, or psychological archetypes. But what if they're not? What if these so-called myths are fragmented memories of real events, passed down orally, twisted over time, but rooted in truth? Across every continent, without exception, giant beings appear in the most ancient legends, some friendly, some terrifying, all larger than life. And what's even more puzzling, these civilizations often had no contact with each other, yet the stories align. Coincidence, or the echo of a forgotten global presence? 1. Native American giants, red-haired enemies of the earth. Many Native American tribes have detailed stories of giant races that once walked the land. These aren't vague myths. They are consistent accounts passed down for generations. The Paiute people of Nevada speak of the Saitaka, a race of red-haired, these cannibalistic giants that terrorized the region until they were finally burned alive in a cave, Lovelock Cave, where, strangely, oversized bones and sandals were later discovered. The Choctaw and Comanche told of giant warriors that stood over 10 feet tall, strong enough to carry a buffalo under each arm. The Navajo warned of a prehistoric race of Starnake people, giant beings with technology and spiritual powers wiped out by the gods after misusing their knowledge. Why would so many tribes, separated by thousands of miles, tell the same story? 2. Norse mythology, Jutnar, the frost giants. The Norse people, isolated in the cold reaches of Scandinavia, spoke of the Jutnar, gigantic beings who existed before the gods and rivaled them in power. These weren't mere fairy tales. The Jutnar were seen as primordial forces, huge, immortal, intelligent, and deeply tied to nature and chaos. Even Ymir, the first being in Norse creation mythology, was a giant. The gods supposedly used his body to form the earth. Is this just poetic metaphor? Or could it be a symbolic retelling of a forgotten era where titanic beings ruled and were later destroyed or sealed away by more human-like forces? 3. Middle East, the Anakim and Rephaim. We've already touched on the Nephilim in earlier parts, but the Middle East has an entire pantheon of giant clans. Anakim, described in the Bible as a race of giants who lived in Canaan. The Israelites were said to be like grasshoppers in their presence. Rephaim, another race of giants believed to inhabit the underworld. The Bible notes that King Og of Bashan was the last of the Rephaim and that his iron bed was over 13 feet long. These weren't isolated stories. They were part of Israelite history, enough to warrant detailed measurements and recorded encounters. If these were metaphors, why such specific physical descriptions? 4. Ancient India, Rakshasas and Asuras. In Hindu epics like the Mahabharata and Ramayana, we find descriptions of massive beings. Rakshasas, giant, often demonic creatures capable of shapeshifting, wielding powerful weapons and commanding armies. Asuras, predecessors to humans and gods, strong, massive, and often at war with divine forces. The Ramayana even tells of Hanuman, a monkey god so large he could leap across oceans in a single bound. Are these simply spiritual beings or remnants of ancient races that once coexisted with early humans? R5. Africa, the Zimwi and the Giant Kings. African folklore is equally rich with stories of colossal beings. In East Africa, the Zimwi are said to be man-eating giants with magical powers. In parts of West Africa, myths speak of giant kings who ruled before humans, being so tall they could talk to the sky. More intriguing are the Dogon people of Mali, who possess advanced astronomical knowledge and claim it was taught to them by giant sky beings called the Namo. These legends predate telescopes. So how did the Dogon know about Sirius B, a white dwarf invisible to the naked eye? What kind of beings were the Namo, giants in size and knowledge? 6. South America, Viracocha and the giants of Tiahuanaco. The Inca and other Andean civilizations spoke of Viracocha, a godlike figure who created a race of giants from stone. These beings disobeyed him, so he destroyed them in a great flood. In Tiahuanaco, Bolivia, one of the oldest cities in the Americas, massive statues and platforms remain. Some stones weigh over 100 tons. Legends say giants built Tiahuanaco in a single night, using power granted by Viracocha. Even after the Spanish arrived, locals still believed giants once roamed the Andes, and some conquistadors even claimed to find massive skeletons in the jungles. Why would the same flood and giants narrative appear in South America, just as it does in Mesopotamia? Verse 7. Polynesia, the long-eared giants. Again, as mentioned in Part 4, Easter Island's Hanau Epe were believed to be red-haired giants who built the Moai. But this isn't an isolated story. Across Polynesia, myths speak of long-limbed, red-haired, powerful beings who arrived from the sea, built monuments, and either disappeared or were killed off. Some say these were remnants of Lemuria, a hypothetical sunken continent populated by giants. And strangely, the red hair motif shows up again, just like in the legends of the Saitaka in Nevada. Coincidence? Or was there once a global red-haired race of giants whose memory lives on in the rocks and stories? 8. China and Mongolia. The sky giants' Chinese mythology is full of immense beings. Pongu, the first being, was a giant who formed the universe by separating the sky and earth with his body. In Taoist texts, immortal giants appear in the mountains, living in harmony with nature and teaching humans hidden knowledge. Meanwhile, Mongolian epics describe a time when giant warriors roamed the steppes, fighting with dragons and gods. These aren't just fables. They reflect a universal memory of massive, ancient beings who shaped the world before us. Number 9, Europe, Gog Magog and the Lost Races. British and Celtic mythology is overflowing with tales of giants. The British giant Gog Magog was said to be 12 cubits tall and fought the Trojan Brutus during the founding of Britain. The megaliths at Stonehenge were believed by locals to be created by giants who transported the stones from Ireland using magical strength. Even Greek mythology is clear. The Titans ruled before the Olympians, giants who defied the gods and were cast into Tartarus. In almost every corner of Europe, the first inhabitants of the land were giants, later defeated or buried beneath hills. Some of those hills, they say, still hold sleeping giants, waiting for a time to rise again. 10. Australia, the Yowie and the Great Ones. Aboriginal legends speak of the Yowie, a massive, hairy humanoid, often described as 7 to 12 feet tall. But these stories go deeper. Ancient Dreamtime myths talk of Great Ones, beings from the stars who walked the land, shaped rivers with their feet, and carved mountains with their hands. Some elders still claim that in the oldest times, the ancestors were giants and that their bones lie hidden in sacred places. Conclusion: a unified memory of giants. So what does this all mean? Why do cultures on every continent, most of whom had no contact with each other, all share legends of giants? Why do these stories include consistent details like cannibalism, red hair, great floods, superhuman strength, conflict with the gods, building massive structures? It's one thing for a single culture to create a metaphor. It's another for every major civilization on Earth to invent the same metaphor independently. That's not myth. That's memory. And it points to a forgotten epoch in human history, one buried by time, denied by academia, but still alive in our collective subconscious. Part 8. Global Footprints of the Giants. If giants were only a myth, why do their footprints span the entire planet? Introduction. The Worldwide Echo. So far, we've uncovered a hidden history of giants in North America, buried skeletons, native legends, and systematic suppression. But here's the twist. This isn't just an American phenomenon. From the icy steppes of Siberia to the jungles of the Amazon, from the deserts of the Middle East to the temples of Asia, giants appear everywhere. Different cultures, different languages, different time periods, same story. Coincidence or confirmation? In this episode, we explore the global footprints of the giants and uncover clues that point to an ancient species that once ruled or perhaps roamed across the earth. 1. Giants of the Middle East, from Nephilim to Nimrod. Let's begin in the cradle of civilization, the Middle East. The Bible and other ancient Hebrew texts reference beings known as the Nephilim, Rephaim, and Anakim, towering humanoids said to be the hybrid offspring of divine beings and humans. Genesis 6:4 says, "There were giants in the earth in those days, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men." Sound familiar? These weren't fairy tales. In the book of Numbers, when Israelite spies scouted Canaan, they reported, "We saw the Nephilim there, and we seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes." Some traditions say the mighty hunter Nimrod, who built Babel and Nineveh, was himself a giant or Nephilim descendant. In ancient Mesopotamia, the Epic of Gilgamesh describes a part divine king over 11 cubits tall, roughly 16 to 18 feet. Gilgamesh was no metaphor. His name appears in real Sumerian king lists. Is it possible that these towering rulers weren't just legends, but actual beings that once walked among us? 2. Egypt and Nubia. The tall gods and pharaohs travel south to Egypt and Nubia, and you'll find statues, tombs, and carvings depicting beings far larger than normal humans. Ever notice how Egyptian gods like Osiris, Anubis, and Ra are always portrayed towering over others, even royalty? Skeptics say it's artistic symbolism. But what if it's literal? Some mummies, like that of Sanakht, a 3rd dynasty pharaoh, measured over 6'6", 2 meters, towering over his peers. He was buried alone in a massive stone sarcophagus. In ancient Nubia, reports from 19th century explorers claim to find massive skeletons and giant tools, some so large a modern human couldn't lift them. And then there's the Great Sphinx. Erosion patterns suggest it predates the dynastic Egyptians by thousands of years. So who built it? Could an earlier race of larger beings have constructed the original megaliths? 3. Africa's mysterious megaliths and legends. Throughout sub-Saharan Africa, oral traditions speak of great men, or first people, who were immense in size and strength. In Mali, the Dogon tribe tell of ancient beings called the Nomo, said to be giant amphibious creatures from the stars. While the Nomo are more alien than human, their size and ancient wisdom fit the same archetype. In South Africa, stone circles, like Adam's calendar, span miles. Their builders are unknown, but some researchers believe they predate the Egyptian pyramids. The stones are massive and oddly aligned to celestial positions, requiring advanced knowledge and serious strength. Then there's the legend of giant footprints, like the famous Goliath's footprint in Pumalanga, a 4-foot-long print embedded in granite rock. Is it erosion or proof that giants once walked here? 4. Europe. The forgotten bones of Albion, Europe is just as steeped in giant lore. In England, the ancient name for Britain was Albion, after a race of giants said to inhabit the island before humans arrived. Stonehenge legends claim it was built by giants, using magic and incredible strength. Ireland has the famous Giant's Causeway, a geometric rock formation that folklore attributes to Fionn mac Cumhaill, a giant warrior. Even Roman historians recorded tales of fighting against enormous warriors in Gaul and Germania. In France and Italy during the 1500s to 1800s, giant femurs and skulls were frequently uncovered and displayed in museums. Some were later dismissed as elephant bones. But were they? Why did these discoveries suddenly disappear from scientific record after the 19th century? 5. Asia and the Pacific. Mountains of myths. Asia holds some of the oldest and most bizarre tales of giants. In China, ancient texts mention the Long Ma, giant hybrid beings with immense strength and knowledge of the heavens. In India, the Mahabharata describes Rakshasas and Asuras, beings sometimes 10 to 20 feet tall, battling against humans and gods. In Japan, the Oni are red or blue-skinned giants who lived in the mountains, wielding massive clubs. And then there's the Pacific. In Fiji, Samoa, and Hawaii, oral traditions speak of enormous humans who built stone platforms and moved multi-ton boulders with ease. The Rapa Nui of Easter Island claim that the Moai statues were moved by giants or with the help of mana, a supernatural force possibly channeled by larger-than-life ancestors. What ties all these stories together? Massive stone structures no modern technology can replicate, and giants who once ruled. Number 6, South America, the giants of the Andes and the Amazon. The Spanish conquistadors encountered legends and sightings of giants in South America. In Patagonia, explorer Ferdinand Magellan and later Sir Francis Drake reported encounters with people up to 12 feet tall. They called them the Patagones. In Peru, megalithic ruins like those at Sacsayhuaman and Ollantaytambo contain stones weighing over 100 tons, stacked without mortar. The Nazca lines, only visible from the sky, include humanoid figures with disproportionately large bodies. The local legends? They attribute these works to Viracocha, the white-bearded giant god who came from across the sea after a great flood and taught civilization. Were these truly gods or a surviving race of technologically advanced giants? 7. Australia, Aboriginal tales of the Miga. In Australia, the Aboriginal people have long told stories of Miga or Yowie, enormous beings, sometimes 10 feet tall, living deep in the bush. They describe them as older than humanity, sometimes helping early humans, sometimes driving them out. Australian archaeologists have occasionally unearthed oversized human footprints, teeth, and tools that don't match Homo sapiens. Many were sent to museums. Most have now vanished or been reclassified. Why are these patterns always the same? Myth, discovery, suppression. 8. Patterns across continents. When you pull back and view the evidence from a global lens, certain patterns become undeniable. Oral histories across cultures speak of giant beings living before or alongside humans. Megalithic structures exist on every continent, built with stones far beyond the capabilities of ancient technology. Archaeological finds of giant bones were common until they started vanishing. And nearly every culture tells of a cataclysm, a flood, fire, or war that wiped the giants out. Are these all just cultural coincidences or the fragmented memory of a once global race? And if so, where did they go? Conclusion: the Hidden Kingdom. We've spent centuries dismissing giant legends as folklore. But maybe it's not that ancient people were obsessed with stories of monsters. Maybe they were telling us history. Giants weren't isolated anomalies. They were a global presence with influence, technology, and power. And someone, across institutions and centuries, has been working to erase them. But as we've seen, you can bury bones, but not the truth. Not forever. Part 9. The Last of the Giants. Are they still among us? If the giants disappeared, why do people keep seeing them? Introduction, extinction, or survival. We've traced the evidence across continents, ancient skeletons, oral legends, massive architecture, everything pointing to a forgotten race of giants that once walked the earth. But there's one lingering question that haunts this entire theory. What if they never really left? What if some of these beings survived the floods, the wars, the cataclysms, and retreated into hidden places, waiting, watching, perhaps even walking among us in secret? Sound far-fetched? Wait until you hear the eyewitness accounts, military encounters, and government files that suggest the last of the giants may still be alive and deliberately concealed from public knowledge. Let's open the forbidden door. 1. Red-haired giants of Lovelock Cave. Still watching? We've already covered the giant skeletons allegedly found in Lovelock Cave, Nevada, over 9 feet tall with red hair and double rows of teeth. But here's what's less known. For decades after the remains vanished, locals kept reporting sightings of enormous humanoids in the surrounding mountains. Red-haired, pale-skinned beings seen from a distance at dusk or dawn. Some hikers spoke of huge footprints, over 18 inches long, leading into caves that aren't on any maps. Others reported booming voices echoing from inside cliff walls, as if something massive lived within. Are these just echoes of a legend, or evidence that not all of the Lovelock giants died? 2. Kandahar Giant, the U.S. military encounter. Let's move to one of the most controversial modern reports of a living giant, the 2002 Kandahar Giant incident in Afghanistan. According to multiple whistleblowers, including former military contractor L.A. Marzulli's interviews with anonymous soldiers, a special forces unit was sent to investigate a missing patrol in the remote mountains near Kandahar. What they found was terrifying. A creature, over 12 feet tall, red-haired, with 6 fingers on each hand and double rows of teeth, allegedly emerged from a cave, wielding a massive spear. It killed one soldier before the team brought it down with concentrated fire. They say the body was flown out by helicopter to a U.S. base and classified immediately. The Pentagon officially denies any such incident ever happened. But why would multiple unrelated individuals tell the same story under pseudonyms years apart? And why do so many military veterans whisper of encounters with non-human giants in remote regions like Afghanistan, Iraq, and even the Arctic? 3. Remote mountain sightings. The Himalayas and Alaska. In the Himalayas, local Sherpas and villagers still speak of Dzonga, giant humanoid beings, not unlike the Yeti seen at high altitudes. But they're not just hairy beasts. Witnesses describe them as intelligent, ancient beings, often with human-like faces and clothing, watching from ridgelines, then disappearing into the snow. Meanwhile, in Alaska, bush pilots and hunters have described massive silhouettes walking along mountainsides, too large to be bears, too upright to be moose. A 2021 report from an experienced Alaskan trapper claimed he saw a man-shaped creature over 10 feet tall that stared at him silently from across a frozen ravine, then vanished behind a wall of snow. These regions are inhospitable to human life, perfect hiding spots for something trying not to be found. 4. Subterranean theories. Giants beneath the earth. What if these survivors didn't just hide in caves, but built entire underground cities? Across the world, legends and modern discoveries point to vast tunnel systems, from Turkey's Derinkuyu, a city built deep underground, to the Grand Canyon's Forbidden Caves, which we covered earlier. According to certain Native American and Tibetan myths, these tunnels were used by ancient ant people, or giants who fled disasters by going beneath the surface. There's even a fringe but persistent theory known as the Hollow Earth hypothesis, which posits that ancient advanced civilizations, including giants, moved underground thousands of years ago. Could the last of the giants have gone below, waiting, perhaps even thriving in silence? If so, are the frequent reports of underground booming sounds, mysterious tunnel collapses, and sudden military lockdowns in remote areas really just coincidence? 5. Giants in the Arctic. Operation High Jump's secret? Let's talk Antarctica. During Operation High Jump, 1946 to 47, Admiral Richard Byrd led one of the largest U.S. naval expeditions ever assembled to a frozen wasteland. The official goal? Training and research. But Admiral Byrd later claimed they encountered flying craft that could travel pole to pole at incredible speeds. Strange? It gets weirder. Some conspiracy theorists believe that Byrd also encountered ancient giant beings, possibly survivors of a lost civilization buried beneath the ice. Later, all research missions were placed under international lockdown, and much of Byrd's supposed diaries remain classified or lost. Why? Was something found down there that changed the story of human history? Could it involve giants in cryostasis, or a race that never died out? 6. DNA evidence and genetic anomalies. What about science? Any modern biological clues? In recent years, several individuals have come forward with unusual genetic traits, such as double rows of teeth, 6 fingers, or unexplained height over 8 feet without any growth disorder. Some of their DNA tests have shown unknown markers, sequences that don't match anything in the current human genome reference database. Could these be distant descendants of giants? Researchers in Europe and South America have uncovered ancient human remains with 7-foot femurs and others with cranial volumes double that of Homo sapiens. These discoveries are usually dismissed, reclassified, or stored away. But why the lack of serious follow-up? Are certain genetic lineages being deliberately scrubbed from public databases? 7. Giants disguised, hidden in plain sight. Here's where the theory takes a strange modern turn. What if some of the last giants are still alive and don't live underground, but right among us? Ever seen someone with unusual proportions, massive height, extreme strength, or oddly symmetrical giant-like features? Is it possible that the descendants of ancient giants interbred with humans and have gradually merged with us, but a few purebloods remain? Some elite families in history, royalty, banking dynasties, secret societies, have been rumored to guard ancient bloodlines. Could this be part of what they're guarding? It's no coincidence that Freemason symbols include giants, cyclopean architecture, and allusions to the Nephilim. Could the giant bloodline be hidden, not extinct? 8. Why the silence? Why the suppression? Why would governments, scientists, and media conceal the existence of living giants? Because confirming their existence would shatter mainstream history and religion. It would prove that humans aren't the only intelligent species to walk Earth. It would confirm ancient texts, Bible, Sumerian, Vedic, weren't allegory but recorded history. It would raise terrifying possibilities. What if the giants return? What if they've been guiding events from the shadows? There's power in myth, there's control in silence, and there's a reason every attempt to investigate giants hits a wall. Conclusion: the Watchers in the Shadows. So are the last of the giants still out there? If we believe the sightings, the military reports, the legends, and the hidden data, then the answer is yes. Not many, not in plain view, but alive, hidden and possibly waiting, in caves, in mountains, in tunnels, in DNA, watching a world that once belonged to them and maybe one day will again. Part 10. The Giants Return. What happens next? They never left, we just stopped seeing them. Introduction. The end. Or the beginning. This is it, the final chapter. We've journeyed through bones buried in forbidden soil, eyewitness accounts suppressed, ancient texts dismissed as myth, and clues scattered across our DNA, architecture, and forgotten history. But now comes the ultimate question. What if the giants are coming back? Or worse, what if they've already returned, quietly, strategically, and are simply waiting for the perfect moment to reveal themselves? Brace yourself. The conclusion is not just a theory. It may be our near future. 1. Ancient prophecy speaks of a return. Let's start with prophecy. Many ancient cultures didn't just describe a time when giants were. They warned of a time when the giants will be again. The Book of Enoch, a banned biblical text, prophesies the return of the Nephilim in the final generation. Hopi legends speak of the return of the ancestors who once ruled the earth, beings of immense power and size. Maya codices reference sky giants who will reclaim the earth after the fifth sun ends. The Norse Ragnarok saga includes Jotnar, giants storming out of hiding to wage final battle with gods and humans. Different cultures, different languages, same pattern. A race of giants will return when humanity forgets they ever existed. Have we reached that point? 2. Unexplained sounds and global phenomena. Around the world, strange sky booms, low-frequency hums, and earthquakes without epicenters have been increasing. In 2024, scientists in Russia recorded subterranean anomalies beneath Siberia, as if massive objects were moving underground. In Peru, local miners heard unexplained thunderous footsteps echoing through abandoned shafts. Some have called them the underground giants. Are they waking up? Meanwhile, in Greenland and Antarctica, satellite scans show massive structures melting from the ice, some shaped like humanoid figures. A coincidence or something thawing out? 3. The genetic reemergence theory. Now let's talk modern science, because this gets even wilder. Recent genetic studies have uncovered anomalous traits in certain global populations. Children born with extra teeth rows, 6 fingers, and unusual skeletal proportions without mutations. An increase in gigantism disorders that don't respond to known medical treatments. Unclassified DNA strands in isolated tribes of Patagonia, the Caucasus, and Central Asia. What if these are dormant giant genes reactivating? What if something in the environment or even in our food, tech, or air is triggering ancient DNA? In 2025, a biotech lab in Switzerland allegedly mapped a DNA strand they couldn't trace to any known human ancestry, but matched descriptions from the Book of Enoch. That data was reportedly seized. Why? 4. Government whispers and prepping in secret. Here's the chilling part. The governments might already know. In 2023, U.S. Geological Survey satellite teams were suddenly recalled from Antarctica after detecting anomalous heat signatures. China and Russia have both built massive underground bunkers in recent years, far exceeding civilian needs. Whistleblowers from DARPA claim the agency is testing high-frequency weapons designed to disrupt non-human biological signatures. One retired defense analyst described this as preparation for a subterranean threat, not nuclear war, not aliens, but something that once lived on Earth and might live still. 5. Giants in popular media. Predictive programming. Movies, shows, and books have flooded us with giants lately. Attack on Titan, Eternals, Nope, Godzilla vs. Kong, The Tomorrow War. Why the obsession? Some say it's predictive programming, a psychological technique used to soften the public for future disclosure. Conditioning the mind to normalize the existence of giants so that when they're finally revealed, we're not paralyzed by fear or disbelief. The question is, why now? Why in the last 5 years has giant imagery gone mainstream again? 6. Secret societies, guardians or collaborators. Secret societies throughout history, Freemasons, Skull and Bones, the Illuminati, have long been tied to giant symbolism. Twin pillars, like the bones of ancient titans, giant eyes, giant compasses, giant architecture, rituals invoking Nephilim names. Some researchers suggest that these groups aren't just preserving knowledge of the giants, but serving them, or even preparing for their return. Do elite bloodlines descend from giants? Are they reuniting ancient power structures, waiting for a new hierarchy to rise? Is that why so many powerful families maintain total secrecy about their origins? 7. The earthquake that shook the world, literally. In March 2025, a 9.2 magnitude quake rocked the Pacific, creating a crack over 300 miles long in the seafloor near the Mariana Trench. Seismic monitors recorded repeating rhythmic pulses for hours after. Experts were baffled, but leaked documents from Japan's oceanic agency, JAMSTEC, suggested something insane. The movements do not match tectonic plate activity. It's as if something enormous was walking down there. A month later, fishing vessels near Guam disappeared. The U.S. Navy deployed, then went radio silent. No official statement, no explanation, and then the ocean went quiet. 8. What if disclosure is coming or can't be avoided? Eventually, the truth comes out by force or by leak. If the giants are here or waking or rising, the powers that be may have no choice but to go public. Will it come in the form of a world leader acknowledging ancient beings, leaked video of a giant captured in the wild, or a live event caught on film too big to cover up? The fear isn't just about size. It's about what they represent, a forgotten truth, a new threat, a challenge to our dominance, and maybe a new beginning. 9. What would happen next? Society's reaction. Imagine the psychological fallout. Religions reshaped, history rewritten, power structures toppled, panic in the streets, but also hope for those seeking answers. Wonder for those who felt there was more to the past. Vindication for indigenous peoples whose myths were long ignored. Could we learn from the giants? Trade knowledge, coexist, or are they returning with unfinished business to reclaim a world they once ruled? Conclusion? The giants return, and so does the truth. Maybe they're not coming. Maybe they're already here, in the cracks of the earth, in our blood, in our dreams, in the shadows of every tall tale we dismissed. The giants of old may no longer be legend. They may be our ancient cousins, our secret rulers, or our future adversaries. But one thing's certain. Once you've seen the truth, you can't unsee it. And now you know, the giants once roamed the earth. They were buried, hidden, erased. But nothing stays buried forever. Thank you for watching and imagining. This has been Ancient Giants Once Roamed Earth, a 10-part exploration into the greatest hidden truth of our species. On the Listen and Imagine channel, we bring you what others won't, the questions that rattle the foundations of reality. The mysteries they don't want you to ask, but we ask anyway, because sometimes legends are the only truth left. If you enjoyed this series, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more forbidden stories, ancient secrets, and mind-bending conspiracies. Coming next, who built the moon and why? Thank you all for listening and sharing your thoughts. Much appreciated.